College Board attempting to level the playing field when it comes to college admissions by adding an adversity score to students taking the SAT. It's calculated using 15 factors, including the crime rate and poverty levels from the student's high school and neighborhood. The College Board says it's just general background information, but is this really fair to students? Here to weigh in is Executive Director of Unhyphenated America, Christopher Harris. So, Christopher, what do you make of this adversity score?
Hey, good morning, Jed.
How you doing?
All right. I think it's great that colleges are looking for that X factor in students. I think most elite organizations, they're looking for X factors. The only question I have is why are we not talking about the things that create these X factors, or in this case, this environmental context? Essentially, you're talking about students who are underprivileged, but why are they underprivileged? What circumstances did they grow up in, and who helped to create that? I would say it's usually leftist policies that maybe started out well or with good intentions, but then there's the unintended consequences that create these environmental context that these students are growing up in. But the SAT is supposed to be a Scholastic Aptitude Test. And why are they taking into account your adversity when they're monitoring, when they're supposed to be taking a look at your scholastic aptitude?
Christopher, full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of the SAT as a measure of student potential.
Yeah.
I think they need to do away with it and find a better way, personal interviews, and just having worked in schools for years. But could this be in response to the incredible amount of green privilege that you've seen with stories like Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin and the payoffs? And beyond that, just the amount of money that goes into tutoring these kids, if parents can afford it, thousands upon thousands of dollars in SAT tutoring, that people are looking at this system and saying, well, hold on a second, if those kids hadn't had that privilege of being able to afford that, would they have been in the same position as these other kids coming out of homes and families and school districts that cannot level up that way? Is this a means where people are at least trying to address that inequity?
Well, there's always good intentions, and once again, you're talking about policies that are being created that have this idea we're going to try to level the playing field. But, you have people coming out of the same home. You have children coming out of the same womb who are unequal. So at the end of the day, the left is always trying to create these equal outcomes when you're dealing with people who are inherently unequal. But I do understand where you're coming from, that, yeah, you had the cheating scandal and all those things and that's going to continue to happen. When they set up a new system, there's going to be people who have the means who are going to go out of their way to try to circumvent that system.
Yeah.
So
we actually have a statement from David Coleman, the CEO of the College Board, on the adversity score. It's some sound. Take a listen. I want to get your reaction.
This is a general context in which to look at scores. So if you look at a test score alone, but don't know she was 400 points higher than all her peers, you might not see how exceptional her achievement was. You might miss her resourcefulness. So only when you look at a score in context can you see that despite growing up in a more impoverished neighborhood with less resources, she's done so well.
Is it really providing context, though? Because I know a lot of rich kids who grew up rich, who had rich parents, who came from great schools, and guess what? Their parents didn't help them when they came home at night with their homework. Their parents didn't invest that money. So is it really providing context, or is it just providing supposed context for a situation that you may not know if it's true or not?
Well, it's definitely supposed context, and how do you verify those things? At the end of the day, there's supposed to be the essay, and then there's the interview. But the Scholastic Aptitude Test how is that going to measure those things? You're not going to see that in the score. You can only have that by talking to the individual, and that's why, okay, set the score, have a standard. Right? Do not raise the standard arbitrarily to make it harder for certain people. But by God, do not lower the standard either. You don't do anyone any favors. I understand I listened to the interview from the CEO of the College Board, and he did indicate that they're not changing anything. They're not giving anybody any additional points. But at least that's what they're saying is not going to happen. But how soon or how long will it be before they start giving extra points?
The question is really, do people need to go back to the drawing board and look at this test in its entirety and maybe figure out a better way to figure out student potential and student performance and what those kids will actually do when they get to college?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your input. This is a great debate. We're going to have a lot more on this coming up. I don't think this is going anywhere, Christopher.
No, it's not. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks so much.